didn't make my first flight in an airplane until 1944. I got into the Air Cadets when 1942, first Air Cadet Squadron in Halifax.
Yes.
And I was about 14 at the time. And I got into the Air Cadets and eventually got my first flight in 1944 down in Sydney, Missouri. We went down to summer camp down in Sydney.
What age were you then?
I was 16.
16.
And made my first flight in what we call a cancel. It's a cancel patrol
So you were
bomber.
16 when you got your first flight. And you joined the Air Cadets when you were 14.
Yeah.
You lived in an area where there was a Halifax airport,
Yeah.
and that influenced you greatly as to wanting to
Tremendous.
be a pilot.
Yeah.
That now, when we were chatting the other day, you mentioned about a problem with your hearing.
Yeah, George was the one that brought that up.
Okay.
He's the one. You want to hear an interesting story? Listen to this one. So he's the one that started on me on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
If I would like to hear that whole story again.
Going back as a youngster, I was always being yelled at. Why don't you pay attention? Why don't you listen? Even my own family got that all the time. So then, I was in grade 8. The Halifax school system initiated some kind of a test. I didn't even know what it was. But all the grade 8 students in Halifax at that time wrote this test. And apparently I scored quite high on it.
You scored pretty high on this particular
test,
on the
yeah.
test. And I'm sorry, what test was that?
Well, I understand it was an IQ test, but at the time I didn't even know what an IQ test was.
Oh, okay.
Just something they gave us to write.
Right, just an IQ test, a normal IQ test, okay.
That's what I understand it was.
Yes.
So anyway, I scored quite high on it. And there was a nun from the Sacred Heart Convent in Halifax. She was a Sacred Heart nun.
A nun from the Sacred Heart Convent?
They right across from the public garden where they have the convent.
Yes.
Well, she took an interest in it and wanted to know what kind. So she made arrangements for me to go see a Dr. Dow, who was the leading ear specialist in Halifax at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to see him when he gave me an eye test and he gave me this, I think it was a hearing test. And he said to me, "Do you live around here?" I said, "Yeah, my mother just lived down the street." "Well, ask your mother to come in and see me tomorrow." So I went home, told my mother, "Go on in, she wanted to see Dr. Dow wants to see you." So she went in to see him, and he said to her, "Well, what grade is he in?" "He's in grade 8. "Grade 8? Did he ever repeat a grade in school?" "No." "Well, how did he get there? He can't hear." So that's when it was brought out that I had this hearing problem. But up until that point, I was just not paying attention. So I got through the system. What I used to do, I just make a note when I was in school, make a note of what I go home and study it. Spelling, I remember climbing a tree in the backyard and sounding up syllables and the spelling.
Syllables?
Syllables.
Yes.
All broken down into syllables. That's how I got to.
Okay. So you broke the whole word down into syllables?
It's all in the speller there, if I had to have back in those days.
Okay.
Well, I managed to get pretty good on spelling. Even today, I'm a good speller.
Yes.
But how I did it. Well, then, I carried on, and I went to high school, and then I got a job, and then I had to get the money to pay for my flying lesson. So I got a job as first of all, after I finished high school, I went to the Maritime Business College and studied bookkeeping, they call it then, got the basics. I got that, then I got a job with the city of Halifax in the works department, doing cost accounts and all that.
In the which department?
Works department in Halifax, city of Halifax.
Yes.
But then I got enough money there to go pay for my flying lessons. I got my first flying lesson in 1946. I was in a place called Waverly out there in Waverly. And we were flying off the water. So most people learn to fly on wheels first. Well, I learned to fly on floats.
So you were actually flying a float plane?
Yeah.
And was that in Halifax Harbour?
A place called Waverly.
Waverly?
Now, the Halifax airport at that time was closed out. There was no more flying in to the world. It just made a housing subdivision.
That was the Halifax airport, that was the Royal Canadian Air Force, was it?
No, it was actually one, yeah, I guess basically it was the Halifax Flying Club. Operated by the city pretty well.
Very
But
good.
anyway, I got the flying instruction, and when I got in there, and that's when they had a problem. The instructors had up front. It had a little two-plate aircraft, two-seater. I sat up front, I sat behind.
What was the name of that particular model plane?
Piper J3.
A Piper J3.
Yeah, yeah. So he sat up front, and I sat behind, and the communication was a metal funnel. You know what a funnel would be like. It had a rubber tube on the end of it, and it came back to me, and I had a helmet on, and had these rubber tubes in my ears, which I was supposed to hear with. Well, I didn't hear too good, but I used to watch the instructor's head. And if his head got a little, he wanted me to fly left. I saw his hand go up, wanted me to fly, do a climbing turn, anything like that. I just sort of manifested my own way of communication. Of course, and he didn't know it. So I wasn't hearing all that well. But he did yell at me once. Can you hear me? Of course, I said yes. You know, I wouldn't dare say I couldn't. But to make a long story short, I got to my flying, and I made my first solo flight off the water, and then I progressed up to different advanced training, and finally I went through for my examination. And at that time they brought an examiner down from Ottawa to do the examination, flying test. So I went up with him.
So the examiner was it for the hearing examination?
No, for the license.
Oh,
He was going to examine and test you for your flying ability.
yes,
So he had to go up and do all the maneuvers that he required me to do.
I see.
And I went through all that pretty well.
And he came down from Ottawa?
Yeah. Fellow by name of Johnson. He came down from Ottawa. And there was half a dozen of us going through at the time. So we took our turn going up and going through the paces. And I did come, but I got through. But I made good marks, and I told by the instructor afterwards that I did very well on my test, which made me feel really good. So then I got that done, and then I went on to fly. Most of the flying I did was taking people on fishing trips, having a float plane, going back to different lakes, taking people in fishing, and then taking up sightseers, especially when the cruise ship would come in. I'd be a busy boy taking all the, from the cruise ship, we want to have a look at the, when the visiting Navy ship came in, I'd take a lot of people up flying at that. So basically I did that until I was 65 years old, taking people up flying. I had a lot of fun at it, really did. Well then at first the Air Force returned, my hearing went to problem. So I didn't get into the Air Force because of my hearing problem. But the thing is, when I was 52 years old, I've been flying 34 years at that point, and they decided that up to that point, when you had an examination for your hearing, you put a finger in that end, and you're supposed to hear with the other one. So the doctor had lousy depth perception, so I kept my finger out for a half an inch. He didn't know that. So I blocked my way through that. Well then, up until I was 52 years of age, they decided all pilots must have an audiogram now. No more of this stuff.
Okay.
Putting your finger in your ear. You had to go and have a test. So I went down to the Department of Transport to get my hearing test.
To the Department of Transport?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lady doing the examination. So she put the earphones on, and she said, now, I'm going back here, and when you hear a sound, she said, you raise your hand. So fine. I said, well, before you start, I said, I have a high-pitched problem. I don't hear high-pitched too well. And she said, okay, just raise your hand when you hear a sound. So she went behind me, and I'm sitting there, and the first thing you know, she comes up and takes the headphones out. I told you to raise your hand when you heard the sound. I said, I told you, don't hear high pitch. You don't hear high pitch, you don't hear low pitch either. So she put a light in my ear. Oh, she said, you have wax in your ear. I said, go get your ear cleaned out and come back in. I was really feeling terrible. But anyway, after I remember going home and saying, well, all these years I've had this problem and it's wax in my ears. I'm going to get my ears cleaned up. I'll be able to hear like a normal person. I feel good about it. So I went to my family doctor and told him about this thing. So he examined my ears. There's no wax in your ears. Who told you you had wax in your ears? Well, I told him about this exam. So I showed him the audiogram that they had made up. I showed it to him. He said, oh my God, he said, don't let the aviation people get their hand on this. That was his reaction to it.
Oh.
That bad.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I kind of feel upset about that. But I'm going to refer you to a Dr. Warren. He was an ear specialist in Halifax. So I went to see Dr. Warren, and he gave me a test, and he says, you have a profound hearing loss, he said. And it's not an operation will help you, and it's not a hearing aid on the method will help you. And he said, furthermore, he said, Dr. McNabb tells me you're a pilot. I said, yes. Impossible. Impossible for you to fly with the problem you have. How long you been flying? I said, 34 years.
So
impossible.
He was amazed that you were flying for 34 years
Yeah.
with such a profound loss of hearing,
Yeah.
or hearing that you just simply didn't have.
Yeah, but then he got mad at me. He was actually angry with me. That I was doing, I don't know, but I found out afterwards he was going through a very bad divorce. I guess he had to sign off or something. But anyway, he got mad. And I thought, wow, I've had it. So I went home, and my next door neighbor, Paul Kuttner.
Sorry?
Paul Kuttner, Kuttner.
Paul Kuttner?
Yeah.
Yes, who was he?
He had a hearing aid business going.
Oh, yes, a hearing aid business, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I told him about it. Oh, he said, these doctors, he said, they're not keeping up to date on the hearing aid system. So he said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you one. It's all you have to do is pay for the ear mold for $20. But the hearing aid, you can have it for a month and test it and see how you like it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fine. So I put it on, I couldn't get over it. Opened up a whole new world for me.
Wow.
Wow, I couldn't get over it. And I can remember going into his office and he had it on, and he was testing with numbers and all that. And he said, and I said, there's a static. I get static on it. Static, he took it off, he tested it. There's no static there. He put it back on. Yeah, I said, I had the static. He smiled. He kicked up and he opened up the office door, and there was stenographer down the hall pulling pages out of a notebook. I got the static on it.
There was a stenographer down the hallway tearing paper up, and was making this type of noise.
And I thought it was static on it. Yeah. And then I got it, he gave me a hearing aid. It worked out fine, it was beautiful. And in the meantime, I had what do you have time to get my headset? I still got them. You want to have a look at them? I'll go get them.